officially licensed by Formula 1, PlayStation 4 and PC compatible force feedback wheelbase, detachable veer quick release force feedback wheel rim, accelerator, brake pedal, all in a single box sent to us by Fanatec from Germany via highly trained flock of seagulls. Yes, it is the CSL Elite F1 set, and in this video we're going to be reviewing it. Hold on to your seatbelts. Buckle your seatbelts. Don't hold on to them. Buckle your seatbelts. Get ready. It's going to be a wild ride. Those of you that watch the live streams will know that we've put over 200 hours into testing this wheelbase, steering wheel and pedal set, playing Assetto Corsa, iRacing, R-Factor 2, Race Room Racing Experience, Project Cars 2 and on the Potato PlayStation 4 GT Sport. After this extensive testing, what conclusions have we come to? Well, let's begin with the wheelbase and those forcey feedbacks that it generates. Then we'll go to the pedals and then we'll take a look at the wheel rim. The wheelbase is quite small and compact despite being able to deliver reasonably strong force feedback. The nice thing about its compact nature is that it's relatively compressed in the vertical direction, meaning that when you plop it up next to your screen it doesn't obstruct that much of the screen and your game that you're experiencing. Some other wheels on the market, you'll notice that they're actually quite round and chunky, blocking a degree of the view. Now you can tell that the wheel's German because there's a techno rave located on the top of it in the form of the LED rev lights. These are convenient if you're using a wheel rim that doesn't have LED rev lights on it. Because they're brighter than a Grandmaster chess player, there's no excuses for missing that perfect shift. You don't even need to be looking at it to know that you are indeed hitting the limiter. Now the wheelbase itself acts as a kind of universal hub, well not really universal, but a hub for all Fanatec devices. If you're heavily into the Fanatec ecosystem or intend to go full on fundamentalist Fanatec, then you'll be happy because you can plug all the devices into this and just have a single USB cable coming out the back of your sim rig into your computer. Less cable mess, happy times. The front of the wheelbase has a on-off button allowing you to turn it, surprise surprise, on and off, but that means you don't need to unplug it from the wall and you can just do everything from that lazy seated position in your sim rig, and a mode button allowing you to switch from glorious Super PC mode to I'm on a game console mode. Finally, you'll notice a nice shiny metallic shaft sticking out of the unit, which is known as the Fanatec are going to take more money away from you when you buy more rims device. Obviously, second to that main purpose, it means that you can add and remove various wheels very easily, very quickly, and it does work as you'd expect a quick release system to work, in that you can stay in the game that you're in and you can swap the wheels over immediately, allowing for you to use a Formula rim to drive a Formula car, or a GT rim to drive a GT car, or just whatever rim you want to use using the various rims that are available on the Fanatec website, or the Fanatec Universal Adapter, which allows you to use any real-world car rim that you want to use with your Fanatec wheelbase. Just like real-world motorsport, the options and the ability to spend money is indeed endless. Not really that much more to say about the aesthetics of the CSL Elite PlayStation 4 wheelbase, only that it's nice and stealthy, it does its job, and I'm actually blind from the LED lights. How does the force feedback feel from this? It feels pretty nice and titillating, I have to say. The one aspect that Fanatec have really nailed, and this is a really important aspect to me, given that this is an input device, is that the wheel doesn't have a lot of dampening to it. In fact, you actually have to often put a bit of dampening on top of it through the motor to calm things down a bit. But it's crucially very consistent, very smooth, and very precise as an input device. Now don't get me wrong, it's obviously not as good as a direct drive wheel. It's got a belt in there. You can feel a degree of the motor and the character of that motor and the inherent internal mechanics of it. But with that in consideration, you get a really fantastic range of force feedback, allowing you to feel what the car is doing in game, and also allowing for the game to respond to the car and cause the wheel to respond to what's going on, making the driving in some ways easier, more communicative, more informative, and basically, well, that's the point of having a force feedback wheel. Obviously, it's very hard to convey the actual force feedback feel of something because it's feel, but to put this on a sort of scale in terms of what does this directly compare with that's currently on the market, really, the closest wheel to this would be the Thrustmaster TSPC Racer, but I would say this is easily, in my opinion, a good sort of 20% better in terms of the range of force feedback, the smoothness, the subtlety, and just the general nature of the end result that you get from the force feedback that this base puts out. Now, there are aspects to the Wheelbase's force feedback that I don't think are perfect, one of which is when the wheel is centered, or sometimes just when you're getting very harsh force feedback, sort of vibration oscillations from a game, say certain types of curbing or certain track details, you get this rattling sound from the wheelbase that then comes through the actual wheel itself. This doesn't affect the driving or ruin the input in any way, but it certainly affects the immersion as it's an effect or a character from the motor that feels out of place relative to all the other effects and nature of the force feedback of this wheel. I would say as well, if you're running on lower force feedback, as you turn the wheel around, it doesn't feel as if the resistance is 100% consistent through the full rotation. This is incredibly subtle, and I think a lot of people wouldn't notice it, especially if you're running at higher force feedback. But as someone that's been spoilt with direct drive wheels and just too much luxurious sim racing equipment, it's something I noticed, and it's something that I think is worth pointing out. All said and done, when it comes to the force feedback generated from this wheelbase, it generates a quality of force feedback that you would expect at its price point. It's not as good as a direct drive wheel, it's slightly better than the TSPC Racer, and it's markedly better than wheels like the T300, G29 and other much cheaper wheels on the market. Those wheels work, this wheel works better, you get what you pay for. It's pretty simple, really. The pedals included in the bundle are the non-load cell, non-clutch, CSL Elite, basic pedals, accelerator and brake. Throttle pedal just uses a simple coiled spring to return the pedal and a potentiometer to measure the amount that it's being pushed down. The resistance isn't extreme and it's not loose, it's just a comfortable amount of resistance, making it easy to modulate the throttle in the driving simulators. The throttle pedal action is smooth, consistent and reliable. The brake pedal, however, is slightly more interesting in that despite it being a potentiometer-based brake, i.e. it's measuring the distance that it's pushed rather than the pressure, Fanatec have used a bit of foam that gives it more of a digressive feel and somewhat emulates the action and nature of how you would approach driving using a load cell brake pedal. It's not the same, it's not as good, but after a bit of practice, it does work surprisingly well, and it does allow you to stamp onto those brake points and not worry so much about being super delicate that just breathing on the brake pedal is going to apply 100% brake force. Again, just like the throttle pedal, the action is reliable, replicable, and does what you'd expect it to do. The resistance of the brake pedal is of course stronger than that of the throttle pedal, a combination of the spring and the foam together. Initially, I thought maybe the foam would wear out over time and change, but in the 200 hours that we've used it, it feels exactly the same as it was out of the box. All in all, I think it's a really nice solution. Again, we'll say this again, not as good as a load cell, but of potentiometer-based brake pedals that I've used, this is a really nice solution and allows you to drive, and in my case, lets me come consistently 7th, so absolutely spot on for what it is. In terms of the pedal construction, the pedal base and the pedal arms themselves are a aluminium that's been ruffled up and then powder coated with black paint. They look and feel really nice to use. The pedal faces also include a rubber cover over the top of them that you can remove. So if you want grippy pedals, you get that out of the box, or you can just take the rubber off it to have something a bit more slippy. I like my pedals slippy, but you might like yours grippy, and it's up to you to choose what you want. With this being the F1 Esports bundle, you don't get a clutch pedal. Who uses clutches in cars anymore? I like to. But that means you can move the two pedals you do have into multiple locations. Should you really want a clutch pedal, then the option is to upgrade to the load cell pedal, which then allows you to turn your old brake pedal into the clutch pedal, and of course gets you a nice load cell brake pedal, which, if you're interested in hot lap times, is really advisable to do. Load cells all the way. Life is indeed better with a load cell. When being a negative Nancy with these pedals, the only real negatives I can think of are, well, one of them is that there's no holes in the top of them, which would have been super convenient for mounting them to your sim rig. You kind of have to go under your sim rig and poke around a bit, which is just annoying. Holes would have been nice. And the other one is that because the base plate, in fact most of it, is made out of metal, if you're a socks racer, such as myself, or a barefoot commando, then your feet get bloody freezing on these. Maybe if you live in the tropics, it's okay, but in the UK, my feet are freezing off while sim racing with this, so I have to wear extra pairs of socks just to avoid getting frostbite in my heels. When you're sim racing, you don't expect to look like a mountaineer that's just spent a night with their feet outside of the sleeping bag. So bear that in mind if you're a socks or barefoot racer. If you wear shoes, it won't be a problem. But, well, you know, us sim racers are a bit weird. Something else to be aware of, unless you have the load cell kit, you can't adjust the brake sensitivity from the steering wheel. That's only an option with the load cell, which would have been nice to have with the potentiometer. I don't know why it's not there as an option. But if you really wanted that feature, then you will unfortunately need to get the load cell. So really, I think the pedals are really nice. Again, if you look at them at their price point, you basically just get what you pay for with these. Really nice material, they work well. That's it. It would be nice in this kit to have the load cell in the kit. It would be nice to also have a clutch. But for what it is, I think you get what you pay for. So no real complaints from me when it comes to the pedals that are bundled in this kit. When it comes to the Formula rim, I have to say, this is something that Fanatec do well. Their wheel rims are really stand out, and one of the things that Fanatec just absolutely nails. Now, this Formula rim, you might be familiar with if you know the Club Sport steering wheel rim that they did previously with their sort of original Formula rim. You might be familiar because this is basically exactly the same, only it's undergone a little bit of plastic surgery. I should say metallic rubber surgery, because the lower portion has been removed. It's gone to Los Angeles and it's come out looking a little bit more sleek and possibly a little bit more like a traditional Formula wheel. Everything else is pretty much exactly the same, though. You've got your metallic construction in terms of metallic faceplate, metallic rear casing, metallic shifter pedals, metallic quick release and springs. A lot of metal there, giving it it is very weighty, but also giving it a very nice, solid appearance and just making it feel really luxurious, I have to say, for a steering wheel of this caliber. You, of course, have the grips with the Alcantara coating on top of a sort of rubber finish. The Alcantara, personally, I'm not a big fan of it. I prefer more of a leather or PU for the grips because the way Alcantara wears. We'll get onto that later. But the Alcantara does feel really nice on your hands. 200 hours. It's worn a little bit on mine, but it still feels nice to hold on to. The actual moulding of the hand grips, really, really nice and gives you a good, solid feel of the wheel. You feel like you're in command of the vehicle. I would say I've got medium-sized hands, not full Yeti hands. I've got medium-sized hands, and I would say that the wheel's probably going to be slightly more comfortable for people that have smaller hands rather than larger hands. But it's a good intermediary in terms of how the grips go on wheels. It's a good in between. Most people will be accommodated really well by this. Now, the buttons on it all have a really nice action to them, pretty standard. You know, they're buttons. They push down and they click, and they resist the click, but they're not so easy to push down that you're going to accidentally actuate them. Nicely, the buttons do have removable faceplates on them, so you can swap out the buttons with other options, or the visual plastic knoblets to put on top of them. So if you're using it on PlayStation, you can make sure it's lined up, or if you're using it on PC, you can put the other buttons on it, and you can then rearrange things depending on how you configure stuff in your game. That's a really nice touch, I find. The shifter paddles themselves have just a spring resistance that then it actuates a button. Now, obviously, this isn't as good as neodymium magnets that you'll get on the really high-end wheels out there, but it's a really nice action. When you push it down, it's a moderate amount of resistance, and when the metal contacts the actual switch, you can't feel the switch actuating, but you can feel when you push it down, you can feel it push against the metal. It makes a nice little click. And that makes it very obvious when you're actually shifted, and when, if you haven't fully shifted, it stops you mis-shifting. I've not had problems with this, and as I say, I'm used to neodymium magnets, which are very positive in click and offer a lot more resistance. I think this is nice, not as good as neodymium magnets, but it does its job, sounds nice, and works well. Now, in terms of the functions on the wheel, and this is a really nice thing as well, I think, with the Fanatec kit. You push a button on the faceplate, And then that allows you to go through 1 to 5 profiles, and each profile you can set stuff like wheel rotation, sensitivity, the force feedback strength, dampening, the Fanatec drift mode, the brake sensitivity if using a load cell, and a couple of other options. You can do this on the fly, and as I say, you've got 5 profiles you can save. I would like to have more profiles there, because if you're like me and you play too many simulators and too many different cars, you want different profiles for different things. But generally, it's all there on the wheel, and it's super handy to have there, and really nice to be able to just push the button and use the funky joystick to change those options on the fly. You wouldn't think it was a big thing, and it wasn't something I was aware of before using the Fanatec rims, but I've actually got kind of used to it now, and I'm really going to miss it when I use other pieces of equipment. And I think that's really a subtle but somewhat killer feature for the Fanatec wheel rims. All the Fanatec wheel rims have this functionality, so it's just really nicely done, I have to say. There's not really much more to say about the wheel. I mean, obviously it just looks gorgeous. It feels fantastic. Let's raffle through some negatives. Biggest negative of the wheel rim for me would be the Alcantara finish. Now, the simple fact is, I mean, you really have to wear gloves if you don't want the Alcantara to wear. And I don't sim race with gloves. I like to have naked skin on wheel experience, bareback sim racing. That's what it's all about. Why are we taking precautions with gloves? Just go all in, guys. And as a result, you can see after 200 hours or so, this has started to wear on the grips. It still feels nice, it still works fine, but it has started to wear. I'm going to try and do some Alcantara restoration or Alcantara cleaning methods in the future, see how that works. That'll be a separate video, but that's something to be aware of. I personally would much prefer it to be made out of a leather or fake leather, like a PU leather. I prefer that because I like to race naked. It's like the naked feet, naked hands. Just go full naked for sim racing, guys. That's what I'm saying. Another negative, I mean, it's quite heavy. Some people probably say that's a positive. I mean, it does give it a sense of solidity. I'd imagine its weight does probably causes the force feedback to have to work harder. Maybe it would have been better to be slightly lighter, but you can also use the wheel rims on the full Fanatec range of stuff, including the direct drive stuff, where it's not going to affect force feedback really. So there's not really much more to say. Another really awesome feature, actually. I'm supposed to be negatives here. We're trying to be negative, but you can map the joystick on the wheel to move the computer cursor around to access menus, and of course you've got the buttons to access menus and everything else. The general functionality of the wheel as a gaming device, as much as it is a sim racing rim, is just really nice. And as I say, those are the things that I think I'll miss more when not using Fanatec equipment. The functionality is just great. We go back to positives from negatives. I really do like Fanatec rims. I think that's one of the things that they do very well as a company. Woo! There we go, guys. In under 20 minutes, wheelbase, steering wheel, and pedals all reviewed. I know we've missed some points about this. I wanted to cover as much as possible the pertinent details and information without having people die of old age. You don't want people to start watching a video as a child and then be in a old people's home by the end of it. So for those of you that have questions that I've not covered in this video, just drop them in the comment section and I'll answer them as soon as possible. Final thoughts on the whole unit. This is basically the cheapest, best value for money way to get into the Fanatec ecosystem at this point in time. You get a cut down price by buying it as this bundle. I would like to have had a clutch pedal on it. I would prefer to have a circuit steering wheel, but it's the F1 set, and what you do get is really nice. The key takeaway, every component of this, the entire aspect of it is you get what you pay for. There's cheaper wheels on the market. There's cheaper selections of things on the market. But what you do spend on this, you get back in the quality. So I think Fanatec have really nailed it with this set. So there you go, guys. Not much more to say. Don't forget to click the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the like button. And we've got a Fanatec affiliate link, of course, that you can click in the description or the top comment if you are buying one of these, and then we get some money. On that note, Fanatec did send us this to review for free. I didn't buy it, so keep that in mind. I'm a filthy, dirty influencer. Don't listen to any YouTuber, is my advice. But there you go, guys. I will see you when we next stream, which will be very soon indeed, after a bit of a hiatus. I'm excited to get back in the rig and do some more driving. We've got plenty of stuff on the way. It's good times, guys. Take care. Goodbye.